and Northwest Marine Trade Association's Vice President, Director of Government Affairs during the day. And as the evening becomes magical, I become the co-host for Seattle Boat Show Live, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington, where I am. And Mark Manzel, you are in Anacortes, and there's so much going on in Anacortes right now. I'm about ready to blow up. What's happening in Anacortes?
There is, you know, the rumor has it that we have the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Sale starting tomorrow right here in Anacortes. The weather's going to cooperate. It should be beautiful. There's over 60 boats being set up right now down on the docks that you can visit. Some will be brokerage boats, some will be new boats, and a lot of excitement. And there are just so many people wanting to get out on the water this summer. It's going to be quite amazing. And so we're real excited here to be kicking this off. And I hope you come down and see it. We've got a special event down at our offices at the Waggoner Cruising Guide. There will be signs pointing down to that, just a block down from the Cap Sandy Marina. And there's no charge for the boat show. So you can come in and roam around and take a look at the boats of your dreams, and plenty of people to answer your questions. And well, I look forward to seeing you there. Please stop in and say hi.
You'll be signing autographs, and the whole fan club will be there, I'm sure.
I don't know about autographs, but thank you, Peter. You know, if it's before 5 p.m., yes.
It gets a little sloppy as the minutes go by.
Well, you know, it's a waterfront town. It's on the water, and boating and tasty beverages go together.
Oh, it's gonna be tremendous. We do this every year. We being NMTA in partnership with the Anacortes Chamber of Commerce and the Port of Anacortes, and this year will be a little bit different. It will be not the boat show extravaganza that you might be accustomed to, but we're really pushing the spring sale, getting more people on the water on a new or used vessel. Previously owned, a vessel is always a good thing. So looking forward to seeing how that turns out. So yeah, what else is going on in your world, Mark?
Well, our regular viewers may have noticed Leonard and Marina are not here with us. I talked to both of them earlier today, just before they went out of cell phone range. They thought they would be in range. And, you know, we've all been following this going to Alaska and the express route to Alaska. And they're on that express route. They're right now north of Prince Rupert. They're right on the Canadian-US border on Dundas Island for the night. But they got the word to me that they did not have a reliable cell phone connection. So they're going to take the night off. But they were kind enough to send some notes for our updates. Lorena is just fantastic on this. And so I have a number of items to cover. And related to their transit, it's been going very well. We've been following them on marine traffic and on their satellite tracker. And they the other day topped off fuel at Port McNeill, and then they headed northwest to the Gordon Island group to anchor for the night in Port Alexander. They had wind against current the next morning, gave a real rocking effect. And I'm sorry to report that Eddie, the Waggoner guide dog, heaved up his breakfast. And we got the word that he's doing fine now, but he's now an official sea dog. So for those of you who just finished your dinner, I'm sorry I had to bring that up. So they've noticed along the way that North Harbor Marina has said that they've had about 20 U.S. boats on the express transit trip to Alaska. So there's plenty of boats doing it. At Port McNeill, they can tie up at the docks, but they cannot go ashore. If you do need provisions, the local IGA grocery store can bring your groceries down to the dock for a $9 charge. So, but we've been getting reports along the way from Shearwater, from different places, and people are having a great time, even though they're on this fast transit trip through Alaska. The Landon's report that they had some rough seas again with directional winds and current as they approached the south side of Campion Island. So they went to the outside rather than straight up Grenville Channel. And they're going to have some pictures and a report about that. It's really a beautiful trip. I've done it coming back. I've never done it on the way up, but they did it, and just have seen some beautiful places. quickly went through, plenty of whales. And the one report they've had is they've had more good cell phone coverage than they expected. So BC cell phone companies are putting more antennas up there. And they passed 5 Canadian Coast Guard boats, 1 RCMP boat. None of them stopped them. So no issues there. I've been watching the boats going up on AIS, and it's quite fascinating. And, you know, in general, everybody is being very orderly and following the express rules. Landon's heard only one negative comment over the radio about U.S. boats and Finlayson Channel near Klemtu. And somebody said, what are all these American boats doing here? It's not very respectful to our COVID issues. So not all the BC residents have been informed about the transit trip protocol that many of our boaters are doing. CBSA has been informing boaters over the radio that the pass-through is allowed with no anchoring, but they did not speak to the transit through as an option, which, as we pointed out earlier, allows for overnight anchoring. So they're Dundas Island. They've got 4 boats ahead of them on AIS and about to cross over into Alaska. They are going to be reporting in using the row map, and I expect they'll be in Ketchikan tomorrow, and they'll be able to report next week about Southeast Alaska. So that's very exciting for what's going on over on this side. I've got a couple of other little announcements. One is kind of a sad announcement, especially personal for me. We just got the word just this evening before we went on air tonight that Rhiann Douglas, who is co-author of many of the exploring cruising guides that my company publishes, and both Rhiann and her husband Don, who passed away 2 years ago. Well, unfortunately, Rhiann passed away this past Tuesday, and a sad note for the boating world. She made and Don made an incredible contribution to cruising and encouraging people that it's okay to go north to Alaska. And we're going to miss her. And I got a chance to visit with her 2 weeks ago, and she passed away at her home with her family around, and kind of a sad thing for the boating community. So our condolences to her family, and we're going to miss her contributions to it. And some of us, myself included, are going to make sure those contributions continue with her books and maps and the great things that she did. So that's unfortunate. Peter, do you have any updates out of the legislative world?
Oh, yeah, you know, it's kind of quiet there now. The biggest update occurred yesterday on the legislative front. I was bragging about the operating budget that is set every 2 years. The gill net for the commercial gill netters was actually, there was a proviso in there to buy them out, which would mean more ample opportunity for recreational anglers, which we continue to struggle with. And unfortunately, Governor Inslee just yesterday vetoed that section out of the budget. So that was a real problem day for us here. Our lobbyist, Carl Burkett, spent 12 years working on that, and to see that fall down yesterday was a real kick in the teeth. So we're going to regroup and figure out our strategy for next year. So
any idea where he got pressure from? Was it from the fishermen, or was it the financial side of buying them out?
No, I think it was more of the former. So his uncle, he talks about his uncle being a trawler. We just have never had much luck when we go recreational anglers against, I hate to say it, but against commercial gill netters. They're not that many in number, but they always seem to get the governor's ear right before he makes that final decision. So a real bummer, but we'll regroup, and we're not a single issue organization, even on the fishing side. So we've got other issues that we've won on and care about. And speaking of an issue we won on, just yesterday, Mark, I was at the Northwest Yacht Brokers Association at their annual meeting, presenting with Fred Robinson, who I believe is watching tonight. Hi, Fred. So yeah, he and I did a kind of a best of the legislative session around that House Bill 1107, that skipper chartered issue I can't stop talking about. We all saw the bill signing last week, and Fred liked what he heard so much that he invited me to go to Roche Harbor with him tomorrow, Mark. So I'm going to get on a plane and fly up to Roche for a quick trip. I'll be on the 9 a.m. flight and back at the 1 p.m. flight. So he and I will be meeting with the Worth Avenue rendezvous, the Worth Avenue Yacht Rendezvous. So
Great.
looking forward to that and checking in with Troy and Kevin and saying hi to maybe grabbing a meal at the restaurant up there. So yeah, that's going on tomorrow. I had a couple ideas, Mark, around Green Lake, dialing a little bit back closer to home for me.
Sure.
I don't know if I talked about this last week, but I met with Seattle City Council member Dan Strauss to figure out what can we do to get some boating activity back on Green Lake like it once occurred. There were some famous hydroplane races that have occurred on Green Lake. It's a nationally known lake on that front, on that circuit. Steve Greaves and I have talked about getting some sort of activity, maybe just for a weekend. So anyhow, Councilmember Strauss was all over it. He wants me to take the lead on it. So we'll see how, just as long as George tells me I can take the lead on it, doesn't know about it, I will continue to take the lead on that. But thinking about concerts on Green Lake, which was Councilmember Strauss's idea. Led Zeppelin has played there. Grateful Dead has played there in days past. So
no kidding. I had no idea.
Yeah, you walk around Green Lake and you can stop right at the Aqua Theater. You can see old ticket stubs in their little promenade there. So yeah, they would come in on a barge and go out. I have no idea how they went out, but in style, I'm sure. So yeah, and then also maybe there's something around getting some electric boat activity, Duffy boats or something quieter on the lake. So anyway, sky's the limit there, but I'm excited that that'd be a new one for me. And then just now I'm helping George Harris, NMTA president, as he was in a community meeting thinking about whale watching. So that whale watching issue on the San Juans, it's now Washington state law that professional whale watchers cannot be within a quarter mile of the west coast of San Juan Island.
Okay.
And a half mile around Lime Kiln Point. So that's, but now the community is also looking at more measures. The word no go zone, Mark, which I know makes makes our hair stand up on edge. Was mentioned earlier. So George was representing boaters and anglers, and there was about 4 or 5 folks on again our side that were part of that discussion. There was about 15 people in that meeting. So that's just wrapping up now. So we shall see how that goes. I might have an update for you next week. Looking ahead, Mark, as I like to do, May 22nd through 28th is Safe Boating Week. So that is a big deal. There was a really nice article in the Seattle Times this past week with the headline just yesterday. Boat registrations are at the highest in 12 years. Here's how to stay safe on Washington's waters. And there was all these nuggets in here about how to stay safe. Take the online in-person course to get your Washington State Boater Education Card. We encourage all boaters to get that. Have a U.S. Coast Guard or a member of the U.S. Power Squadron conduct a vessel safety check. You can do a virtual one.
Yep.
Carry 2 forms of communication that will work when wet. Skip the booze and drugs. Last year, 3 fatal accidents in our state, Mark, involved substances. In one case, a 16-year-old passed away. Use the National Weather Service and other resources to understand conditions, wave forecasts, and tides. Something that's not talked enough about, Mark, is cold water shock. That is a killer. Our waters may look warm because it's sunny out, but we have really cold waters in our state. So,
well, and a lot of people don't recognize that when you use the word hypothermia, that it's not just prolonged exposure in cold water, but can also be that cold water shock, that moment when you first go into the water, you take that gasp and ingest water, and that's often the end of it. So it's a very critical issue.
It's that gasp, that's for sure, Mark. Well said. So last year, 22 people died in fatal boating accidents in our state, and 6 people went missing. About half of those incidents occurred on non-motorized vessels, and 70% of the victims were not wearing a life jacket. Tomorrow, Mark, is wear your life jacket to work day, something that we do around NMTA. And to get the party started, I was going to don my life jacket, Mark, which I just conveniently have sitting right here. So if I could slip this.
You must have it there just in case.
Slip into something a little bit more comfortable.
I think it's more likely there just in case somebody invites you to go boating.
Well, be prepared, Mark. Be prepared. So it's a hard knock life, as you know, Mark. But yeah, so that's all what's going on in my world.
Well, a couple of other little things we've got just in Washington news. All Washington counties are now in phase 3 with the full reopening of the state anticipated for June 30th. So we're seeing all kinds of differences in terms of what the mask protocol. I noticed in my West Marine the other day when I walked in that West Marine is not requiring masks if you've been vaccinated. Other stores and restaurants are requiring masks. So still keep a mask handy. I keep it right there in my back pocket. and am able to pull it out and use it when needed, when it pops up. Peter, do you by chance know what the protocol is for the Anacortes boat and yacht sale?
Spring sale. Yeah, we are encouraging masks. We want customers to be comfortable. We feel like they will be more comfortable wearing masks. We're not going to be requiring or legislating that everyone has to have a mask on. So if you've been vaccinated, but we are encouraging. We'll have ample masks there, and you'll see NMTA staff modeling good behavior, what we consider good behavior, and wearing a mask throughout the entire show.
Okay, excellent. Other news related to that, the United States and Canada has extended the closure for non-essential travel officially to June 21st. So this has been the continual process where they continue to put that deadline out there, and then they do bring it up and make a decision again. Many of us at the Waggoner Guide who've been looking at this think that it's going to go through the summer. So there are some people that are anticipating that this may change, may get dropped, but we're not seeing any signs other than Prime Minister Trudeau and the American authorities are in discussion, but we're not seeing it imminently if you're planning to make a trip up to BC. But I can tell you what's that, Peter?
There was some news today, Mark, around cruise ships. So I don't know if you saw that. This kind of breaking news.
Yes.
I'll put this in the chat as well, that they are Alaska will welcome cruise ships out of Seattle, which would bypass BC a little bit enough. But yeah, I'll put that in the chat as well. It's the
that's a huge flexing of the Jones Act rules. And I look at that more in the long term of their kind of adjusting the Jones Act rules for the condition of what's going on.
So we made it to week 47 without mentioning the word Jones Act. I think we should get an attaboy for that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think we've.
I think you're reaching on that one.
That's a rabbit hole we could avoid.
Again, the information we've talked about in the past about the transit trip through Alaska still appears to be valid. We're still seeing that there isn't really a consistency with the different authorities you talk to within Canada. We are hearing a consistency that it sounds like checking in at now I forgot the name of that marina in Sydney.
Van Isle Marina?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. I just lost my Waggoner credentials.
Well, I am here, Mark.
Van Isle Marina is going to be your best bet, and it's best to call on the main number first. Let them know what time you expect to be at Van Isle. They appreciate that, and they're going through their normal procedure. They do seem to be lightening up on fruit and vegetables and alcohol. Fruit and vegetables are saying, okay, as long as you have it on your boat, don't bring it ashore. You're not supposed to go ashore anyway. And they don't want you dumping it into the water. They would rather your seeds or whatever from fruit and vegetables get packed out when you get to Alaska and put it in the trash up there. So we're also not hearing when people show up and declare that they have more than the limit for wine or alcohol. They're not actually seeming, now don't take my word for it, this changes every day, but they're not seeming to be charging for overages of alcohol. And I think they're treating it that this alcohol is in transit because you're not going to come ashore. And they are really sticking to that. They really don't want anybody to come ashore if you're on a fast transit. So that's where we are with that. Want to thank our sponsor, Gene Grosbeck Realty Group. Thank you very much. If you're here in Anacortes for the boat and yacht sale, stop by their office. I've noticed a number of new listings that they have, and this is the time of year if you want that beautiful waterfront house here in Anacortes to talk to them, or a dock or a townhouse. They've got quite a number of listings, and they know what's happening in terms of what's going on. So with that, Peter, we have a guest tonight.
This is going to be a special show, Mark. I'm looking forward to hearing what Captain Jack has to say.
Yeah, we've got Captain Jack Friel and with Yacht Deliveries Northwest. And Jack is a delivery captain. And it was interesting. I got a phone call just this week on Monday. Somebody said, hey, tell me about delivery captains. And I could easily say, tune in on Thursday night. We're going to have everything you want to know. So we've got Jack joining us. Jack, click on in when you get a chance there. And Jack has 40 years of experience in both power and sail. He's cruised all over the world. He's done Atlantic Ocean crossings. He's cruised in the Caribbean islands, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, the waters from Mexico to Alaska. And he's a graduate of the U.S. Maritime Academy. And he holds a U.S. Coast Guard master's license with tow endorsement. Jack is a 100-ton license and also has his sail endorsement. Jack's a scuba diver and also trained in first aid and CPR and has many other credentials. And Jack, go ahead and hit video. Come on and join us. I think he's teasing us, Peter.
One moment.
There he is. He's coming.
I need to be re-added back in, it looks like.
Huh.
Jack, just say start video on your control panel at the bottom. That should get you going.
It says host has stopped me.
Oh, yeah, we ran the background check on you, Jack.
Once again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Jack. We'll get Peter is going to work to get
There he is. Look at that. A little bit of build up. A little bit of build up, but there he is.
You're on, Jack.
You're on.
Oh, there it is. It's a miracle.
Love it.
All right, Jack. Tell us.
There we are.
Start us off with what is a delivery captain? Why do I need a delivery captain? I can take my boat just about anywhere. Well, maybe not.
Well, and that's where I come into play. And a lot of times it has to do with the insurance companies. People tend to think that I work for them, but in reality, it's the insurance company that signs off on me, that approves the trip, the route, the time of the year, etc. So I submit my bio, my credentials, and then a trip itinerary to not only the owner, it goes on to the insurance company, and they're the ones who ultimately approve any of us to be out on the ocean for a delivery.
So if I wanted my boat down in Mexico, down in La Paz for the season, and my insurance company said, Mark, I don't know about you going offshore, I'd call you, right?
That is exactly it. Now, and it's also to say that you possibly would be joining me, but they would look at, again, my credentials and resume and approve me with you on your boat for that kind of a delivery.
Okay. And what exactly do you do for that? Do you do all the planning, the weather? Tell us about it.
Well, weather, and it is all about the weather. But the weather that pretty much dictates what the trip's all about. People always refer to as, did you have a great adventure? Was it really exciting out there for this trip? And the best trip is a boring trip.
Those are the ones that I like, especially when going offshore.
Very much so.
But if I were to hire you to take my boat down to La Paz, what you would put together a plan, and how do you handle weather days and those things?
So, okay, so the plan is everything from, I mean, it's the crew, there's three components to it, and that's the crew, the weather, and the vessel itself, making sure that the vessel is prepared with the appropriate safety equipment, making sure the crew is briefed and ready for offshore adventures, and then it's monitoring the weather with using the various tools that we have available anymore for making sure that we're out at sea with good weather and we're ducking in when we know we've got inclement weather coming.
So, Jack, would you be helping me to set up what I should have for crew?
Very much. And I've got a bit of a slide presentation that addresses a number of those items as well, of how I organize crew, the kind of shifts that we run, etc.
Great. Why don't you show us, Jack?
Okay, we're going to jump into it.
Share screen. You have to go to Northwest. Share.
Jack's going to set us up. Here he goes to screen share his slides.
And
Looking good.
we're getting there. Something's happening.
Okay. Is it?
No, I'm not. Or is it?
Okay, stop share.
Moment.
Stop share, Ray.
That's okay. We've got till 8 o'clock.
Share screen. It's black. Why is it black?
I lost my presentation. Technical difficulties here.
Have you heard any good new jokes recently, Mark?
Okay.
No, I guess I should have a couple good nautical jokes to share. I will say, just
There it is.
the other day I picked up a copy of 48 North, and I noticed on the cover they said cruising Hood Canal, and I plan on going to Hood Canal this summer, so I quickly opened it up. Here's this article by Jake Beatty, head of the Northwest Maritime Center in Port Townsend. And what a great article. I'm going to send Jake an email about this, because Jake just has a great style of a little sass and puts a little attitude into it. And it's a lot of fun, and it added to my interest of the places that I want to go in Hood Canal. So I'm not going to announce when I'm going to be down there, because I want to, I want that Hood Canal experience without 30 boats. So, but I'm going to report later on about
Looking forward to
Hood Canal
that.
on our show.
Yeah.
Jack, if on your slide side, if you take that to full screen, I think we'll be
Back to
Slideshow.
No, go to slideshow, Jack. I think you just were there.
slideshow. Okay, we're just
Did slideshow, and then try to click on present, doesn't work.
presents not
No,
taking me
so Jack, if you
to-
move your arrow to the left a little bit, it says slideshow. There you go. What happens? You know what you could do is just make that screen large, and we can see your slides good enough the way it is. If you just want to use your arrow key and advance the slides, that
Oh,
would work
bummer.
also.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
But tell them present's not working.
They understand, so they're just saying we just go and let it go from here.
Yeah, that's
Let
fine.
it
That
rip.
works.
Okay.
There we go.
So Yacht Deliveries Northwest, and the three main areas that a captain is involved in throughout the year: delivery services, and typically delivery services, what I find, are spring and fall. I do lots of new owner orientation and training. A lot of times that's people that have stepped up in size to a new, bigger vessel, and the insurance company requires them to spend someone like myself to help them understand their systems, the handling of the vessels, as well as a number of other areas that get addressed in here. And then during the summer months, I spend a lot of time as a charter captain on some of the larger vessels. Delivery services, and we deliver big boats, small boats, long haul, short haul. We get contracted just to move a boat from its slip over to the haul out facility for a marine survey and put her back in her slip. And this is to say that we do power boats as well as sailboats. I find here in the Northwest, we do more of the power boats. The further south you go with the warmer water and the trade winds, we do more of the sailboats. Mark, as you started to say, there's three components to a delivery, and that is the crew, the weather, and the vessel itself. So the crew, owners are welcome. I usually want to make sure I've got one offshore qualified first mate with me. And there's more that go into crew, and we'll be addressing that further down the slides. The weather, and again, it is finding good weather windows to move the boat. We hide if the weather is not going to be cooperative. And then making sure that the boat is outfitted and exercised and in good condition for this type of a trip.
Jack, do you come down ahead of time and walk through the boat before you agree to a major offshore delivery to kind of take a look at it?
It depends on the vessel. A lot of times, actually, no. Many of these boats are recent purchases, so they've been through a current or a recent survey, and they're looking at a repositioning from San Francisco to Seattle, for example. And that's where I'm looking at a survey. I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm up against or what the situation will be of the vessel before I actually show up.
Good, good.
Once on the vessel, you're never quite sure who the crew's going to be. And in this case, this actually is a bird who we were crossing the Atlantic. We were 1,500 miles from shore and woke up one morning and here's this bird asleep standing on deck. And you can see from the long legs, he's actually a shorebird. So I guess he stopped for a nap before he continued his voyage. And the best part was that with his long legs, as the boat is swaying back and forth, the bird was still staying perfectly upright while asleep.
Oh, I bet he hated to leave that place.
He was with us for a good 8 hours recouping, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Mark, as you had suggested, though, I mean, what am I looking for when I go look for a vessel? And a lot of times, as I said, there's going to be a current survey for the vessel, and that gives me a really good heads up as to what I need to prepare for as far as tools, supplies, spare parts, etc. And I do, obviously, I'm looking at current USCG safety equipment, and that's flares and life jackets and bells, horns, standard equipment for the vessel that's USCG required. We're taking, if the vessel isn't equipped with a life raft, we're bringing immersion suits. And as you two were discussing earlier, in the Northwest, we're more likely to be using immersion suits due to the temperature of the waters up here. You go further south, and it's okay to be in a life raft, which is basically laying on top of a 70 to 80 degree temperature water. Up here, you'd be laying on a piece of plastic on a 55 degree piece of water, and the temperatures would create hypothermia in no time from a life raft perspective. There's a fun video that I didn't have time to put together and present, but it shows me, and we would have dress rehearsals, and they're timed dress rehearsals, as everyone in the crew would get the opportunity to put an immersion suit on before we leave the dock. Safety first. We talked about the owners adding me as the authorized operator to the marine insurance policy prior to the delivery. Pre-departure vessel system checks. We go through the boat top to bottom, bow to stern, opening all the hatches, identifying and exercising all the pumps, float switches for bilge pumps, ensuring that there's bilge pump plugs, and making sure that we know what does and doesn't work and how important some items. So a diesel furnace might not work, but in that case, we would go ahead and go buy electric heaters, run the generator, and turn on heat that way. So it's not always that the boat has to be 100%. A lot of times the owners bought this boat, they're bringing it up or down to Seattle, for example, and they're going to have service work done once their new boat shows up at home. We understand that, and we'll work around it to get the boat up here.
Got it.
Pre-departure crew orientation. And I've got more that address crew, but crew is critical to the trip. And when I say this, the crew, the more information I can share with the crew, and again, this is whether it's the owner or the qualified first mate, the more knowledge I can share with them about the system, the route, the weather, the safer I am, that they're able to save me. I am not the weak link in the situation. We all try to compare notes, make sure that there's an understanding, and there's more safety that way. This is just a screen. One of the boats that we were preparing to get to deliver, and it was missing. It needed some extra fenders. It needed some extra long dock lines. You can see a number of fuel filters. Always, of course, important, toilet paper. Current flares, there was no throw ring on it. There were some fire extinguishers that were within certification, but one that wasn't, so we replaced that as well. This is a small kit. We go to the grocery store, and when you're going to go do a week or a 2-week delivery, to go through the grocery store with multiple carts as you're loading up groceries for 3 people for a 2-week trip, and you always get the best looks or the strangest looks in the grocery store as you're pushing these carts through, filled to the brim, and there's 2 or 3 guys doing this, and people are looking at you like, just exactly what are you doing?
Oh,
What is
Jack.
your adventure?
Mark and I get those weird looks all the time. It's nothing foreign for us.
Okay, well, I get them as well. A common question that comes up is, Jack, what's the biggest boat you've ever delivered? And
Good
you can
one.
see in the foreground and you can see a Washington State ferry in the background. And I must say that no, I don't run boats this big. This is going to have a full-time crew, full-time captain, probably a crew of at least a dozen on this vessel. I'm typically running 100-foot and under vessels that don't require a full-time captain. And this allows me to do what I like, and that's continue with the adventure. You're married to a boat, sometimes the boat can sit for months. Well, I'm on boats, an OA 58 here, sorry, OA 64, we brought up from San Francisco in March. We had a weather window, insurance company was okay with us being on the North Pacific in March, so we brought her up the coast. I'm running more boats in this size. That said, this is a Swift Trawler 44, and we brought this up out of San Francisco one summer. Much under 40 feet, and we're probably not out on the North Pacific running them. Just small enough that you can either truck them, the ride isn't very comfortable, so we tend to discourage those type of moves. As I'd mentioned, I mean, part of one of the components of the three is crew. As we do run 24/7, we typically run with at least a crew of three. We run a 3 hour on, 6 hour off shift. It's always sleep when you can so that you're refreshed and ready should your shift be coming up, or we need your manpower. And that could be everything from smoke in the engine room and it's all hands on deck. It could be the one fire that I did have was me in the galley, and I turned around for a minute and the paper towels fell on the stove. So again, keeping things from, trying to keep things from being exciting. With a qualified first mate and myself, then I'm comfortable having a unqualified, someone who's not done offshore experience, kind of sandwiched in the middle between us. This is one of the younger crew. I've got a pretty good crew roster of men. A lot of them are retired. Several other captains that are and or men. Is in this case, Brandon Thompson looking for addition. He's a licensed captain looking for additional sea time and offshore experience.
Now, Jack, when you're doing all this, you've got all these people under contract. What happens when you have a weather day? Everybody's getting paid, and that weather day could be 2 or 3 days, correct?
Correct. So in my contract, in the delivery agreement, I'm forecasting Seattle to San Francisco. It's a 5 to 6 day trip. We're paid door to door. So from the time we leave to go get the boat prepped, and should the boat not be in the condition that it's represented as, we might have to spend an extra day or two to get things running, to get things serviced, pumps that aren't working as they should or need to be replaced. We're paid door to door. If we are in transit and we pull into Crescent City, California, which is fairly common, you have different weather patterns north of Cape Mendocino than you do of South Cape Mendocino. So a lot of times we'll get down to Crescent City. Typically, maybe it's a 36-hour delay, and then we're able to get around Mendocino and on down to San Francisco. If they're the first weather day delay, we're paid at full rate. Additional days are paid at half rate. And typically, if the weather window completely closes and we're going to have to sit for a week or more, we tie up the boat, lock her up, and we go home.
Okay.
Jack,
So I think the important thing for somebody to know is that there's no fixed price bid with this, that weather can affect it, the condition of the boat can affect it, and can add days, and days are money, unfortunately, but there is a process for that.
Yes, there is.
Jack, if someone's sitting at home right now and saying, hey, I think I'd like to have this sort of vocation for a career change, what would you say to that person? I could see where you would spend a lot of time as a psychologist, as a short order cook, as a, you name it, you run the gamut. Is that pretty accurate?
That is pretty accurate. That I've got various meal lists that I circulate amongst the crew prior to us all meeting. And if there's something on this list you don't see and you want it, add it in. If there's something on the list that we don't need, let me know. We have kind of a standing joke on the boats, and it's, well, when that meal or that food item is gone, it's gone. But I tend to not only prepare the vessel and orient the crew, watch the weather and be alert and ready for it. I do a lot of the meal, I say preparation or shopping, and then I do a lot of cooking on the boat as well. A happy crew is a well-fed crew with enough sleep, and these guys tend to keep coming back more and more. So, but Peter, to answer your question, how does someone get into this? Really, the big thing is go get your ticket, go get your master's license. That, and believe it or not, your master's license is now your opportunity to begin to learn. Tremendous information gained during that process, but then you get viewed by people such as myself as someone serious, interested in developing this kind of a career, or I refer to this as my retirement career. Gets me on the water. It keeps it exciting for me.
And just to answer that question that may be running through some people's heads, there are several schools within the Puget Sound area available where you can get your captain's license. And I appreciate what Jack said. Some of you will see that there will be a 6-pack or OUPV license. But the best is to go right at the same time, continue on to get that master's license. It's not very hard to add that onto that captain's license, and it really does indicate that you're serious.
Very true. Okay, so continuing on with the ideas of crew, and owners are welcome. Owners are on these trips with me. Photo on the left was I think it was a Beneteau 58. We were running from Anacortes to San Diego. Owner in his foul weather gear with his harness system on and his tether. Again, safety is critical to any move. Middle picture, and this is one of my long-term crew members. He's done at least probably a dozen trips with me, and I think I've worn the guy out. And on the right, well, that was a recent addition. Mary and I were bringing a boat up out of San Diego, and this seagull had kept circling and decided he liked us and wanted to join in as crew. So you've got all kinds of different crew members, from feathers to sleepies to guys all tethered up. During the course of almost any one year, I'm on 25 to 30 different vessels a year. What that allows me is when I step onto a boat, I'm able to very quickly assess and understand the systems on the boat. And this is everything from the electrical systems and the inverters. Some boats require generators running 24/7, others don't at all. Some need a blend of the above. Mechanical systems, and this might be just an example of your fuel manifold right here, where this vessel's got 5 different tanks plus a day tank. So you're constantly moving fuel from different tanks into the day tank, keeping the boat in balance, in trim, as you're transferring fuel around during the transit. That goes into fuel management. And fuel management, you have to start with some kind of a baseline. Most of these boats, if you're running at 7-8 knots, which we're running 6 to 10 knots on the average, it's to give us the legs to make the trip happen. Going fast and covering miles just means you go fast between fuel stops. Going slow means I can do 24 to 48 hours between fuel stops. I can cover 500 miles, 400 miles before I need to pull in for fuel. So it's more the tortoise than it is the hare in delivering a vessel.
I'm glad you said that, Jack, because this person who contacted me on Monday said, how can I be assured that my delivery captain is not going to run that boat at full throttle all the way? And my answer was just, a smart delivery captain doesn't run at full throttle. They know better.
You're exactly right. We start off typically thinking it's a gallon a mile is what we strive for with our deliveries. And that is based on the type of the vessel, the RPMs, how the boat rides, And boats, you find them. It's pretty easy to find a sweet spot for a boat where the engines sound happy, you've got a pleasant ride, you're not beating up the boat or the crew, and yet you're still accomplishing the mission, making miles. Water and waste management. Even though it's legal to dump off ashore, as far as black water tanks, typically we fill up the water tanks and we empty the black water tanks before we leave. And when we get to our destination, we refill up the water tanks and we empty the waste tanks at the appropriate marina. And we try to leave the boats in as good, if not seriously better condition than sometimes we find them. People laugh at me and some of the owners, oh my gosh, you washed my boat. And I say, well, I did that before I left. The boat was dirty and I didn't want to walk around in a dirty boat the whole time, covering myself and my clothes full of dirt. So it wasn't about just making the boat look good. It was about keeping Jack clean. Electrical systems management. I think I probably addressed that just in electrical systems themselves. It's how much power does the boat need and making sure that it's available. What's this one? Electronics. This is always interesting. Again, when I step on this many boats every year, there's different manufacturers, there's different ages of the electronic equipment, as well as I bring my own iPad that has all the charts, both raster and vector charts for the West Coast, Alaska, wherever I happen to be traveling. It gives me a redundancy. But
Jack, do you require a working radar?
Depends on the trip, and if you ask my better half, Mary, there's 3 requirements, and it's heat, radar, and autopilot before she'll get on a boat. So working radar, again, it depends on the trip. If it's a longer trip, yes, and most of these vessels are set up with qualified working electronics. The only time that you notice something strange is you pull out and get just past Nia Bay and you realize that the chip for the geographic territory for the chart plotter is only Puget Sound. So therefore, my iPad comes in real handy because it's got all the charts all the way up and down, for example, the Columbia River. VHF radio, another item. The vessel might have 1 or 2 on board, and I bring my own handheld in a ditch bag. So I come prepared with redundancy to keep the trip moving.
Do you carry a sat phone, Jack?
Generally, no. And if I'm doing Alaska, potentially. Believe it or not, up and down the West Coast. And so when we're running up and down the coast, people always say, well, how far out do you go? How far offshore? And I tell them it's really not a matter of how far offshore I go. We go out to the 100 fathom line. We go out to 600 feet. You'll see crab pots out to 300 and 400 feet. I've seen them out to 450 on rare occasions. Point being is that we try to go outside of the crab pots, and that can put us as much as 30 miles off the coast. That puts us basically where the commercial fishing boats are, and yet still inside the commercial freighter traffic. So I always feel when I'm out there with the fish boats, and you don't see that, you don't really see them until it's night, and then you see all the lights, and you realize you're out there with good company. Safety, and this is critical to any trip, always. And I say this, you can fix the boat, but you can't necessarily fix the crew. You need to make sure that everyone is safe, that there's no damage occurs to the personnel. Boats can be replaced. Not that that's the intent or never had an insurance claim, but you keep the crew safe, and that's the primary item there. You can see in this photo here, right here, with Mary, with, of course, this is a good trip, wearing her life jacket. So we're trying to maintain safety as a critical item. Peter, yeah, for Life Jacket Day, Mary's going to wear her life jacket to work tomorrow, as I as well. We discuss with the crew prior to departure and go over a man overboard sequence. Again, this is getting everybody on the same page. So the more information and knowledge I can share, they might have to be pulling me out of the drink. I want them to know how to come back and get me. This was actually in January. Mary and I were contracted to bring a vessel from Anacortes to Kennewick, Washington. So that's 90 miles out to Nia Bay, 130 miles down the coast, and 329 miles up the Columbia River, including 4 different locks/dam systems. In this picture, you can see behind Mary, we're about to go up about 80 feet in one lock. So there's always interesting adventures that are out there to happen.
Sounds like every day for you, Jack, is different.
It is, and that's part of the adventure of being a contract delivery captain. We also address and work with new owner orientations. And, well, first thing is don't overload your boat. I just like that picture.
That's a great one. Yeah, you win, Jack. Best slide.
So a lot of the information that we discussed above for a delivery also gets imparted upon part of this new owner orientation or training. What I've done is comprised based on the insurance companies and their requirements for me to sign off on a new owner. I've built a teaching curriculum around what the insurance companies keep coming back saying that they need to have addressed. One of them, again, vessel operation, that's close quarters maneuvering. So whether this is a sailboat, whether it's a single screw power boat without thrusters, whether it's a pod drive vessel, whether it's a twin screw with or without bow thruster, it's helping people understand their vessel and how it operates. I jump on it with them, and we both go out and get that fun opportunity of understanding how this boat works. I don't know it any better than they do to start. So we go out and experiment and learn and have a great time doing it. I watch people's discouragement or intimidation go from intimidation to excitement and exuberance as, oh my gosh, I lost sleep last night and today I feel so good. This is wonderful. Another item for safety, and that is anchoring, and that's proper anchoring. This puts us into, as you know, from gunk holing and cruising, it puts us in wonderfully remote, beautiful anchorages as opposed just to pulling up to the dock. But there is a process to proper anchoring. So we go out and literally talk it through, drop the hook, and go through the teamwork approach. There's a good communication that should happen between the helmsperson and the person up on the bow dropping the hook and making sure it's properly set. Once again, you're reading my bullet points, and it's safe. It's all about safety, and that's crew, vessel, being safe out there, wearing the life jackets, not putting yourself between the boat and the dock, etc. Clarity and communication, and this is one that I emphasize with every boat I jump on, with every crew, and it's to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. Other captains might have a slightly different explanation or orientation, but it's as simple as, here's 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then it's going ahead and saying, oh, so at 3 o'clock, a mile away, you can see downtown Seattle. So it's not only the direction, it's setting a distance or a distance expectation. It's saying, oh, at 10 o'clock, do you see those whales? 10 o'clock at 100 yards. Or helmsman, 12 o'clock, 100 feet, log. It's very, very descriptive, and it adds to the joy of the entire crew being able to speak in true meaningful words as opposed to, oh my gosh, you're getting close. Very little meaning to that. Or, oh, do you see those whales? Oh, you mean the ones at 3 o'clock at 100 yards? Yes, I do. So I try to build this team knowledge base and or common language with my crew. Mooring buoy attachment. And it's just, every vessel's a little different. You have to figure it out with what works with what boats, but not always, but one that does work well, and for a lot of the power boats, is that's sterning up to putting a man on the swim platform, making sure he's life jacket on, he's hanging on, and back up to the mooring buoy, putting a line through the eye of the buoy, giving it lots of slack, then having the helmsman put the boat in reverse while that line handler walks to the bow of the boat with the buoy alongside of them. The line handler gets to the bow. That's where the helmsman needs to make sure the boat comes to a full stop. Otherwise, that line handler is either throwing the line in or getting pulled over.
Jack, we typically end at the top of the hour, but we might be going in a little bit of overtime tonight.
I've got another 3 or 4 slides. Am I good to
Great.
go?
This is great.
Okay, thanks, Peter. General knowledge, and again, this is part of more of the curriculum of new owner orientation, but it's rules of the road, and the vessel on the right has the right of way, etc. Buoyage, red right return, and they go on and on. Sound signals for operation. People always think, unlike your car, where it's you lay on the horn and say, "Move it, buddy." There's true sound signals on a vessel have true meaning, and yet they also are open for interpretation. The same sound signal could be used in different environments, and you have to be able to interpret it. Understanding tides and currents, and this is a tide is a position. A current is actually water movement, and getting people to understand that a tide is not current, and how the currents can impact your trip. Everything from pulling into Friday Harbor with a 2 or 3 knot current and how that's going to challenge you getting onto the dock versus a sailboat with a 2 or 3 knot current coming on the nose, and how much that slows you down. And moving right along. Couple of different boats and crew members. You can see the crew on the right smiles and happy, and might have something to do with that glass of wine. Crew on the left, I'm not sure if I bored them or if they just were catching a few winks as we were transiting with the boat. So kind of the latter part of the 3, as a charter captain, we run 70, 80, 90-foot boats. People charter these boats. It's just me generally as crew. Maybe I'll have a chef on board as well, but they're looking to be part of the team and part of the adventure. They're not looking to sit back and have somebody serve them a drink. A lot of times these people are boat owners coming in from out of state that have heard about the San Juan Islands and the Gulf Islands and in Desolation Sound and the warm waters, and they want to go experience that, but they want to be part of the crew. They want to be handling lines. They don't have the time to come out and learn all the systems and to get signed off to run the larger boat, but they want the comfort that also offers them, or it's a larger group. So it's an interactive and a fun process for them to be part of.
Jack, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know there are some people with large vessels, and sometimes they're going to be entertaining with friends, family, or business associates. And it may just make sense, even though they're the captain of their own vessel, to hire a charter captain for the day.
And I get those contracts or those opportunities that people will say, that's just that. We're having a birthday party on the boat, and I want to be able to socialize. I don't want the responsibilities of running the boat for the day. And that's where we would get brought in as well.
That's great.
So this next section, and this is just, there's adventures out there. And I've just got a handful of different pictures here, and it's everything from, you watch the dolphins approaching the vessel, and it looks like a torpedo has been fired at you. The water's relatively calm around you, and you see the water disturbed as something is coming directly at you. And as it gets closer and closer, seriously, it looks like a torpedo fired at you. And then you realize it's a pod of dolphins. And they come and surround the boat, and then they're up playing in the bow wake. And we always go up and take your sunglasses off, but we always go up and watch them. Because if you watch them, and you'll notice, they roll over on their side, and they're looking back at you. And if you've got your sunglasses on, they can't look you in the eye, and they're looking at us just like we're looking at them. They put on quite a show for you. Well, this was the tail end of one of the Atlantic crossings. And on a Rustler 42, this is 3 weeks after 3,000 miles in 3 weeks coming from the Canary Islands down to St. Lucia. and we were part of the arc, and we were crossing the finish line. So they had a camera boat out there and somebody to wish you, congratulations, you made it here. You can see from some of the beards on board that some of us shaved and others just enjoyed being out there and looking kind of grim, or I should say grizzly.
Manly.
Thank you. Yes. Over the years, I've got so many sunset, sunrise pictures that I start to wonder, how do I tell them apart? And I finally realized it's pretty simple. I mean, this was about 3 weeks ago. We ran a 50-foot catch out of Anacortes down to Portland. We crossed the Columbia Bar about 5 a.m, so we caught slack high. And this is about the way the water looked. Well, we were actually over the bar at this point, looking east, and you can see the mountains. So look east, see shore, there's sunrise. On the other hand, look west, and right in the middle is the searchlight on the bow rail. So that's not an obstacle that we're about to hit. But you look west, and all you see is ocean, and all you watch for is that green flash. And of course, everyone loves seeing orcas. So as close as this picture is, and it is close, we had stopped our boat probably 5 minutes in advance of this photo. And they kept coming and they kept coming. And we just shut down the engines, turned off the electronics, and sat still and had a nice show of the killer whales coming through. Now, part of cruising, running boats, yes, it is serious, but there's also a good place for humor. And this is a chap that I've sailed across the Atlantic twice with. And he was always one with quick wit and good humor just at the right times. And tension didn't tend to grow. And here he's wearing his famous, in his mind, fish hat. Oh, and here at the tail end, again, here's my buddy David. We're running a boat out of Anacortes down to San Diego, sailboat, and I'm assuming he's not on watch on this one. Probably me taking the picture. But here's David asleep on deck. But notice once again, he's got his safety harness on and he's tethered in. So safety is first and foremost for our crew. And that's pretty much it. So I'm a couple minutes over.
Yeah, we'll bill you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Captain Jack. Where can people find you?
www.yachtdeliveriesnw.com is our website.
Great.
And you'll find us in a contact there.
Sounds like you're a wealth of information, and it's a valuable service. I'm really glad you do this, and I think it's important for people. I know people sometimes buy a new boat to them, and then they want to pick it up in San Francisco or whatever, bring it up the coast. And I think I'd rather do that with somebody like yourself, who's done it many, many more times than I have, and know the ins and outs and how to be safe. So I really appreciate your sharing all of this with us, Jack. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate being invited, Mark, Peter.
Thank you, Captain Jack.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mark, do you know what's on tap for next week?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. We've got a very interesting. So we've got somebody from RCO, the Recreational Conservation Office. And this is the group that takes part of our tax money and puts it back into marinas, back into parks. And I think we've even got a special announcement next week, just to add a little excitement, but something that's been near and dear to our hearts for the last couple of months. And I understand we might be able to announce it next week.
Wow.
So we have a representative of RCO who's going to talk about this. And it's just great. It's our tax money coming back in to be able to use to improve boating facilities. And she'll be explaining all that and how it all works.
Boaters started that state agency in 1964 through the initiative process where we banded together and came under one tent to create an office where we actually give money back to worthwhile projects. So no, this will be a good one. I love that agency.
Yeah. So it should be a lot of fun. So next week, Thursday night, 78. I know where I'm going to be.
Right here.
right here.
That's
Now,
right.
the week after, I won't. I'll be in New Jersey. So that different story there. but
Naturally.
maybe I can do a report from the Jersey Shore.
That's okay, Mark. You can take the week off. We don't need to see
All
that
right,
visual.
all right. I
That
appreciate
visual
that,
alone. I haven't
Peter.
eaten yet. So no, I thank everyone at home for watching us. Episode 48, hosted by in the Saturday Night Live lore, was hosted by Buck Henry and Seattle's own Jennifer Warnes, who sang the song from Dirty Dancing. I've had the time of my life. So there you go. And just like last week, we're going to end tonight's show with Colors from Roche Harbor, and that's If I Can Figure It Out. So I will stop sharing here. Here we go. I'm going to enable audio, Mark, so I don't make that mistake again.
I'll be saluting, Peter.
Okay, here we go.
Hands over my heart.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Roche Harbor, welcome. Talk to you a little bit today about the color ceremony of our Roche Harbor Resort. Our color ceremony was started by the late Reuben Tart, founder of Roche Harbor as a resort in 1956, with the first color ceremony going off in 1957. Our color staff consists of 4 to 5 dock staff that do the color ceremony every evening, 10 minutes before sunset. They'll march out to Colonel Bogey's March to the flags, where they promptly take down the Roche Harbor Burgee first, and then they'll take down the Washington State flag, and then take down the Canadian flag, and then followed last by the British flag, and then the American flag comes down with a salute to colors by a cannon, and then plays taps. In Roche Harbor, please come and join us for our time-honored celebration. We look forward to sharing this experience with all of the boaters here at Roche Harbor, and have a safe and happy boating season.
All right, Mr. Bunzel. Good night, Captain Jack. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Peter. Good night, Jack. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next